I'm also a director of Lotus Capital Limited, which is an Islamic finance investment company based here in Nigeria. We will carry on from the last episode where we introduced the subject of financial literacy, and we will be going into a few concepts this time around that looks at work security options and combinations. One thing that many of us find is security in employment. That when you are an employee, you go to work and you've got a safe and secure salary. So for some people, when it comes to work security options, being an employee is one option that is quite attractive. Unfortunately, as an employee, it is difficult to determine your salary. You have how much you will be paid, you will be remunerated, you will get your salary at the end of the month, you will get probably some bonuses at the end of the year, but there's a limit to how much you can influence how much you get every month. The second option is to be self-employed, where you are your own boss. So when we say employee, we are talking of somebody like a teacher, a civil servant. You go to work, after the hours, you come back home, at the end of the month, they pay your salary. Self-employed is where you are your own boss. Self-employed is where you are like a tailor, or a farmer, or a mechanic, or a shop owner. Here, you are your own boss. You decide if you want to go to work, you decide if you want to put more energy in, and usually for self-employed, you handle a lot of risk. So it is riskier than being employed. However, the chance of making money is nearly entirely up to you. If you're good at it, you can gradually become somebody who is also an employer. You employ other people. The moment you open a shop, you will most likely employ a cashier, you will most likely employ a security person. So it depends on the kind of business you're going into. But if you're a business owner or you are a shopkeeper and this shop starts to grow, it gets bigger and bigger, what you become is no more just self-employed but a big business owner. So you're no more the mechanic repairing the cars, you're the one who oversees other mechanics, who trains others, and you really become a manager. So you are maybe selling suya, and you have gotten a good recipe for barbecuing meat or fish or whatever the food is, and then the demand is so high, you decide to open another branch. So we look at Yahuza, for example. They are selling meat, they are selling masa, but after a while, instead of just you managing your own little branch, where you are, you start to open 2, 3, 4, many other branches. We can see Mr. Biggs, we can see Tantalizers, we can see Auntie Ajobi's kitchen or village kitchen. Different little businesses that started as just 1, became 2, became 4, became 8. They grew, and you move now from just being self-employed to actually being a big business owner. So first option, you are an employee. Second option, you are self-employed. Third option, you are a big business owner. In other words, you've moved from being the one doing the job to overseeing. So there's a more managerial, more management leadership role, and you are overseeing other businesses. The fourth option is for you to be an investor. In other words, you don't run businesses, but you have shares in various businesses that are run. So you will find somebody saying, I have money that I have invested in Dangote Cement. I have money that I have invested in this business. And somebody else who is running a shop, I am a partner in that business, but I'm not involved in anything. I'm just an investor. Or a school was constructed, or a shop, supermarket, or a housing estate, and I am an investor. And you make your rent, you make your dividend, you make your profit periodically without having to be involved in running anything. You have investments in various portfolios or various businesses. You make your money without having to run anything. So that's an investor. So you could be an employee, you could be self-employed, you could be a big business owner or someone who owns a couple of other businesses. You could be an investor where you don't run things but you make your money. And you spend your time doing the things you feel most valuable to you and your purpose in life. But what we find most common is a combination. That you are employed, but during weekends or your free time, you have something you do by the side. At the same time, you're investing in certain businesses. So somebody decides, for my child's school fees, I will buy land, plant trees, add value to the land, use it for agriculture, use it as an orchard. And in about 10 years' time, when the child is now about to go into secondary school, I can decide to sell the land, and the value of that land would be enough to pay for 2 years or 3 years school fees. But when you bought the land, it was just maybe enough to pay for 1 year of school fees. But the value has appreciated significantly over 10 years. And so one way of looking at it is, while I still have my job, I can have a shop that I tend or get somebody to tend and handle the management of the shop. At the same time, I'm doing some consultancy work. Or a teacher. I'm an employee as a teacher, but I'm self-employed doing extra lessons during the weekends or after classes. At the same time, the money I make from my extra classes, instead of spending it, I invest it in a particular agricultural enterprise along with some friends. And we will discuss why very often you are able to reduce the risk involved in business by going into partnerships, by not taking the only responsibility for the business, but because you have more brains, better brains, you usually are able to cushion any risk. People are able to use their contacts to get out of difficulties. So we'll come to, inshallah, partnerships in a subsequent episode. So what is probably most advisable is, even if you are an employee, be the best employee you can. But because that is just one stream of income, that is just one source of income, while you try to secure that, enhance your salary by building your capacity and being a really good an employee, what else can you do by the side? What extra qualifications can you get that allow you to do other things that give you additional sources of income? Here I would recommend a book called The 10% Entrepreneur. And if you can go online, just put 10% Entrepreneur. Very interesting readings and ideas, some of which we will be discussing, inshallah, as we proceed. When it comes to our wealth, one second concept. So the first thing we looked at are what you call job security options, work options. Whether you're going to be an employee, a self-employed person running your own thing, a big business owner, or an investor, or, as we suggest, some combination that suits you and the current work you're doing best. So we've got those, and it's important to ask yourself, what else can I do? The second thing is how you measure wealth, because some of us start feeling, but I'm receiving a salary of 100,000 or 500,000 or 1 million naira. I don't need to worry about things. I am financially safe. It's important we learn how to measure wealth. Do we describe a person as wealthy because he has 10 million in the bank? Is that a wealthy person? Is a person who is receiving a salary of 2 million naira wealthy? How do we measure wealth? Is it money in the bank? Is it how much you are making? Is it how many assets you have? One simple way of knowing how wealthy you are is to ask yourself, if you were to stop working for any reason, For how long can you continue to enjoy your current standard of living without selling property? In other words, even if your salary is 1 million naira a month, if you bought a car on loan, you're buying a house on loan, you are helping your relatives, you are helping this and that, and when we look at how much you are making, what you are spending is as much as what you are making. So when we look at measuring sustainable wealth and financial security, we need to ask ourselves, if I were to stop working for any reason, for how long would I be able to sustain my current standard of living? Salaries, rent, feeding, school fees, everything. For how long would I be able to sustain that before I start having to sell some of my assets and property? So it's not how much money you have in the bank. It is how long can your wealth sustain you at your current standard of living. So what you find is some people who, they make a lot of money, but if you look at how much they spend, it's a lot also. And what they spend is more than what they make. Some people make a lot of money, but also they incur more debts. If they were to stop working for 1 month, 2 months, they're in trouble. For some of us, we've been working for the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years. But if you stop working now, what income would you make? How long can you continue to sustain your current standard of living if, God forbid, you had an illness that was debilitating, that made it impossible for you to continue to work? If you had an accident, how long would you be able to continue working for? The reason why this is important is it helps us change our paradigm, change the mindset with which we view wealth and what is important for financial security. So it's not how much money am I making. The question is, how much money have I been able to save and invest that is bringing me something that is enough to sustain myself on? So it's not how much money you have in the bank, but what is that money doing? Is it bringing in as much income as your work is? So remember this as we close. If you were to stop working today for any reason, because you wanted to just focus on something else, go for further studies, whatever the reason why you want to stop working, if you were to stop working for any reason, COVID-19, retrenchment, they call it rationalization, all sorts of reasons why you may stop working, for how long can you continue to sustain your current standard of living? And if it's not long, we need to ask ourselves, what can we do in order to ensure that we have sustainable ways of taking care of our financial needs, even if we were to stop working? When we come back, inshallah, from this break, we'll start looking at the difference between working for your money and making your money work for you. We'll stop now until we return, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We started looking last time at the subject of measuring wealth. And we will want to continue, and I'd like to start with two key terms: assets and liabilities. Now, in accounting, an asset is just anything that belongs to you, even if it is not in your custody, but it belongs to you. A liability is what doesn't belong to you, even if it is in your own custody. For the purpose of financial literacy, we will have a different definition, one that is probably simpler, from an interesting author of a common series of books on Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he said, an asset is anything that brings money into your pocket. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. Okay? So if something brings money into your pocket, it's an asset. If something takes money out of your pocket, it's a liability. Very simple definition. So the house you are living in, is that an asset or a liability? In basic accounting, it would be described as an asset. It's a house you own and it's wealth. But from the financial literacy point of view, it's potentially actually a liability. Why? You spend money on electricity, you spend money. But a house you own also, but you don't live in, but which brings in rent, that one is bringing money into your pocket. So the difference is not really so much about is it valuable and is it mine? If I gave you an elephant, have I given you an asset? If somebody says, oh, you can sell that elephant for 500,000 naira. So have I given you an asset? You can look at it and say, yeah, it's worth 500,000 naira. But that elephant, you will need to feed it with about 5,000 nairas worth of food every day. To just take care of the elephant will make you poor. So it's not but the elephant is valuable. Yes, it is valuable if you know how to use that value. But if you're just going to keep feeding the elephant becomes a liability. If somebody gives you their very expensive car, you can drive around with it. In fact, they have given you the car sadaqah, but they said drive around with it, keep it in good condition, but just don't sell it. Don't sell it. Have they given you an asset or a liability? You don't say, but this car is worth about 10 million naira. It's an asset. It's not the value of the car. The car consumes fuel like anything. It drinks petrol. The car has a small problem. To repair it, the spare parts cost thousands of naira. So have you got an asset or a liability? You don't ask yourself what's the value of the car. You ask yourself, is this car bringing money into my pocket or is it taking money out of my pocket? So a car is not necessarily an asset or liability. You have to ask yourself, does it bring money into my pocket or does it take money out? If I need to fuel it, if I need to repair it, it's a liability. If, however, I'm using the car as a taxi and it is bringing more money into my pocket, then it's an asset. And so from the financial literacy point of view, what you want is have more assets and less liabilities. But because as human beings, we would have to have liabilities. Your children are a financial liability. They are an emotional asset, but a financial liability. You have to spend. You yourself, you have to spend on yourself. You yourself are a financial liability if you are not able to bring in something. So, do you bring in more money into your life or are you a bigger spender? So, the comfort we want, you want a television, you want data, you want a phone, you want a car, you want a house, you want a wife, you want to pay bills for, these are all good. You want to do sadaqah, you want to, it's all good. These are all liabilities. They are good. Please don't mistake, and I'm not saying liability is bad. No, liability just takes money out of your pocket. What you want is enough assets to sustainably, consistently take care of your liabilities. That's the objective. In fact, if you're working on a salary you are comfortable with, the objective is to have enough assets that bring in as much money as your salary does. And you are able to manage your liabilities sustainably. So key distinction between asset and liability. An asset is what? It's what brings money into your pocket. A liability, what takes money out of your pocket. Which one is good? Which one is bad? It's not good and it's not bad. Asset is good. But some things that bring money may not be good. They may not be khair, may not be halal. Liability is not good or bad. It just takes money out of your pocket. But your wife makes you take money out of your pocket. Is your wife good or bad? Of course your wife is good. But from the financial point of view, your wife, your children, your parents, your this, your that, the poor person you're helping, these may be financial liabilities, social assets, emotional assets. But because we're talking financial literacy, what I'd like you to focus on is this thing bringing more money into my pocket, or is it taking more money out of my pocket? And what we want is more assets that bring money in, that are able to take care and offset the liabilities or those things that take money out of our pockets. So, distinction number one, assets and liabilities. What brings money in and what takes money out. The second distinction I'd like us to make is income and expenditure. Very simply, income is just money that comes your way. Salary is income. Dividend is income. Money that comes into your pocket, that's income. Whatever you spend is an expenditure. Whether you spend it on asset, whether you spend it on liability. For most people, their money has a route. It has a way. It goes from employer to employee. Sometimes it comes through the bank. So income, usually from work, spends some time in the bank and then it goes into expenditure. Very often it goes into liabilities, maybe some assets. So for most people, it is income going straight into expenditure. They make money from work, they get their salaries, they get their income, and they spend it on all sorts of legitimate things. School fees, rent, food, data, etc. We would like to recommend your money takes a different route, which is that it should not all go as income from work going into expenditure and liabilities. But some of that money, whether 10%, whether 20%, whether 30%, whatever you can afford, some of that money goes into investment. Some of that money goes into business. Some of that money ultimately should go into assets, things you put money in that generate money. So income should not all go into liabilities. We would like to start looking at how to save money that can go into assets, so that over time your assets are growing and your assets are able to take care of your liabilities and your expenditure. So long as you only depend on income, you have to work for your money. But if you can get some of your income going to assets, and over the next 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years, you are able to build your assets, then gradually your assets are bringing money into your pocket. That is when you have moved from you working for money, and if you stop working, the money stops coming, to a situation where the income you are getting from the fruit trees you have planted, from the houses you have built, from your investment in shops, what you are making from that and those assets become even greater than what you are making from your income or from your job. There we see a movement from you working for money to having managed your money in such a way that your money is working for you. Your money has now been turned into assets, various businesses, various opportunities that continue to bring sources that continue to be sources of income and help you take care of your responsibilities. So inshallah, we will stop there for now. Remember the key thing: learn to ensure that a percent of your income from work starts getting saved, starts going into certain businesses. You will lose some money on the way, but you will learn and gain a lot of experience that ensures that over time your assets are able to grow and you ultimately are able to depend on your assets and you are less dependent on your income from work. May Allah make it easy for us. May Allah bless all the opportunities that come our way. Until next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.